I gotta ask you just in general, for everyone to clear the air. I'm gonna be a Twitch. I'm gonna be one of the Twitch guys right now and ask you your political affiliation. But in a more
Well,
specific way, because like, where would you know, like the political compass thing, like the grid? Where would you put
yeah.
yourself like as a dot on that grid? Like the authoritarian left, authoritarian right, libertarian left, or libertarian right?
Wow. I mean, when I started the show in 2019, I was a full libertarian. I was almost bottom right.
Yeah,
I was almost a full on ANCAP. I didn't really
yeah,
know what the use for government would be. I thought it was completely immoral. I thought that all of it was just evil. Like I basically thought anything involuntary was evil. And so the more coercion in something, uh, the worse it was. So I was an anarcho-capitalist where, but I was still advocate of the free market, of course, because it's voluntary. And then I realized basically through becoming a stronger Christian. When I started the show, I was not what you would call a Christian. I was about 5 years deep into a spiritual journey that ended in me, re-becoming a Christian in March of 2019. So 2 or 3 months into my show, I became a Christian. Even though I was raised a Christian, I didn't know what to make of it. Um, but after reading the Bible and studying the early church and stuff, I think there is a place for government. I just think we're so far from it that it would be almost what you would call a biblical government or a Christian government. It would be an unrecognizable thing in today's society.
yeah.
So that's what I would like out of government. I want to be Christian. I don't know if that means a theocracy, because I also believe that belief cannot be forced or coerced. I mean, if you're putting a sword to someone's throat and making them become a Christian, you're not making them become a Christian.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they say at that point. They're going to say anything to get the sword off of their throat. So I don't know. I mean, in the hands of an evil authority, I'm not an authoritarian. In the hands of a benevolent authority, God, Jesus Christ, I'm a total authoritarian. I think that we're Christians. We're called to be bond servants of Jesus Christ. But from the traditional or from the mainstream political compass, I would say, given the day, I mean, I'm almost all the way to the right. First of all, I don't identify with what you would call the left at all, really. But I'm also all the way to the right, and depending on the day, I flirt between going between authoritarian and libertarian, depending on just what is needed. I think that an authoritarian situation is coming our way, whether my spectrum likes it or not.
Yeah.
Like I'm not in charge of stuff. I'm probably never going to run for office. I think government is a little bit gay, as modern government. But so I'm way less libertarian than I was a couple of years ago. But that doesn't mean I want to force people to do stuff more. I want to force myself to live in a good way, and I want the things that I can control, I want to control, and the things that I can't, I want to let go. But I just think there's a lot of evil out there, and it's hard to square. With the amount of immorality and evil out there, it's very hard to think that libertarianism could ever be the answer.
Yeah.
It's just retarded. Because you do me, I'll do you, and then these people that you're letting them do their thing are doing heinous acts of evil,
Yeah.
especially against children. Um, so I don't know. I mean, if you ask me to take the test, I probably would show up a little bit above, like, all the way to the right and a little bit up above the liberty line, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so true. Like, I think that whole compass thing, it's always like a trick question because I think the compass thing is like,
Gay,
where do
dude.
you
Fake
stand?
and gay.
But it's like yes and no. Like
Yeah.
it's relative because it's like
Yes.
on the
Yeah.
physical material level, where do you stand? That's kind of what it is. Is like
Mm.
in your earthly dealings, where do you put yourself? And yes, that's a useful map. But when you're like us, when you're someone who's like a child of God, you look at things as like good and evil. You like
Mm-hmm.
rise above it like spiritually. And I think it's so true. Like I really agree with like a lot of Christians, and like I keep bringing them up. And Owen Benjamin always says like moral people don't need to be governed, and immoral people will be governed one way or another. Like they're going to be governed by their own vices, or they're going to be governed by people who are just superior to them, people who are not moral but smarter or stronger, or in one way or another they have like the advantage. They're going to be governed. And so I think like if you had 10 people who were very morally sound, like very just like God-fearing, God-loving individuals, I honestly think they could be communist. I think they could be capitalist. I think they could, whatever system, whatever earthly system you put in front of them, it would work because they're moral. They agree, they fulfill their contracts, they fulfill their oaths, they work together. They see that, they're not like selfish, they're not too materialistic, they're giving glory to God in all their being. So I think any system would really work. But the problem is if you have immoral people, it's the opposite. I don't think any system would work. Like, yeah, I'm a capitalist, but like capitalism won't work with immoral people. And I think that's what we're seeing right now in society is degeneracy and immorality running rampant, and everyone's like, capitalism. It's like, well, like if you don't have people that are willing to like respect your land rights or like fulfill their contracts, it's capitalism is useless. It's worthless, and like so is it's not like then, oh, okay, well, capitalism, well then false dichotomy, then I guess you're a communist. I guess you think communism will work. It's like, well, no, because people aren't moral.
Yeah, man.
It's like there's it's like a spiritual argument that people, but it's like this spiritual argument no one ever brings up in these political arguments, which I think is necessary to talk about, And that's why I've drifted away too, like same, like I was always ANCAP, and then I kind of was like libertarian ANCAP, where I'm like, okay, we need a limited government, okay, no government, okay, limited government, okay, no government. And now like if you wanted to put me on the physical level, I'm probably more in that like authoritarian, because I look around and see people that can't govern themselves. I see people that don't want to pay their taxes, that don't want to obey the laws, that want to kill, they just want such selfish, appetite fulfilling actions in their life that it's like, I don't trust you. It's like, I don't care about my life really, like I just put my life in the hands of God, but like the people I love, like I don't know if I just trust to let you run rampant on society. Like you said, like I don't know, you can pinpoint specific little arguments here and there, or examples here and there, but just overall, like I just think if you don't have morally sound people, I don't trust that group of immoral people to work together or make systems work, make governance work.
No.
And I think we're seeing the inevitable.
How do you fight it? Like, how do you fight it? Would you it gets to the point where distancing yourself from it is letting them win. And so what do you do at that point? I mean, it's kind of sucks, but the only thing really to do is to run for office. It's so ass. Like what do you do about that? Or you can make your own society or whatever. You can move to the mountains. I'm certainly into that. So
well, I think I'm starting to agree with like the agorism, like not fully, like I wouldn't call myself an agorist, but just that idea of like homesteading, like obey the law, pay Caesar what Caesar's, like like if the government comes and says you have to do this, do it. Like basic, you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to like it, but just do it on a physical level, and just put your hands and your faith and your life and your soul in the hands of God, and just you and your family go. And like the metaphor I like to use is like Babylon. Like you can imagine Babylon, like it's like a walled city in the desert, right? Go live in the desert, but go trade in Babylon. I don't think we're called, like Jesus tells us to go and make disciples. Jesus tells us to spread the faith, So we're not called to just go be hermits in the middle of nowhere. But I also don't think we're called to be obedient, loyal citizens inside the walls of Babylon. Like I think there's this middle ground that people don't want to admit exists, where you can pull yourself out of society while still obeying the government, kind of. Like go trade in Babylon, go interact in Babylon, go try to like help people in Babylon live better lives and find God in one way or another. But also don't be so dependent on Babylon that you have to live inside of its walls or else. Have an outside and exit strategy, like live outside of the walls, but still participating inside of the walls.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like what. That's great, and I think that you're very wise, and I think wise people they see, it's like it's almost wisdom is almost the skill of being able to tell when something is a real dichotomy or a false dichotomy. I've been studying the West a lot, and I'm trying to study the early church fathers a lot, which I don't really think is the West personally. But the Western thought, I think, is all these false dialectics and false dichotomies. And it's when enough people think that it's either or, they take the side of the either the or the or. But it's really there's many things to be done. Just it's not really an on or off switch. I mean, at a certain point, it can be. Like, I think that it's like Christ or nah. Like, that's a real dichotomy.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
absolutely. Yeah.
But other than
good or
than
evil,
that, like,
right
good,
or wrong, salvation or damnation. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's real. But almost all these, anything what you would call material or secular, it's not a dichotomy. It's I don't know what it is, but it's not. It's very false. This dialectical thinking, and that's almost, to me, it's the whole West is a story of false dichotomies or fake and gay dialectics, and that's how people. It's almost how I think the brainwashing happens, where people are just like, it's capitalism or communism. Talk. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk. Like, I don't want to speak. Because if you read the book of Acts, there is a little bit of what you would call communism going on amongst the early believers. They sold all their stuff. It said they shared everything. And am I going to argue against the early apostles? No. But also, in the Gospels, they had money. Jesus told them to go buy food. The story where he's with the Samaritan woman at the well, the disciples were going into town to buy food, so they had money. So he tells
parables of like investing wisely and working for what you earn and stuff like that. So like Jesus contradicts communism, but then he also supports it. So like both camps will pull their preferred little snippet and be like, look, see.
Yeah, I know Jesus was a socialist. I'm like, oh.
Like kind of. I mean, kind of, right? In a couple passages and a couple parables.
Oh yeah,
but he's also a capitalist in a couple.
Yeah, the point is that it's a false dichotomy. Yeah, it's not that he wasn't. It's very easy to just be like, no, Jesus was a capitalist. No, Jesus was a socialist. But Jesus was Jesus, yo.
Yeah.
Jesus was God. Like that's what's going on.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's there's so much of the low vibe, low IQ arguments going out there. And I'm sure I'll make a couple today. I'm sure that part of it is human nature. Like, I'm sure I'll make a couple of these low IQ, but free market, but Karl Marx. It's just, you can't really escape it. You got to repent and believe in Jesus.
Absolutely.